Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jane. I am the Director of Curriculum Instruction in the Programs Department for Responsive Classroom at Center for Responsive Schools. And I'm joining you from my home in Virginia. Prior to being at the center, I was actually an elementary educator for 20 years before moving on into this role. And I am joined with two of my colleagues, actually. So Kristen and Tina. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Kristen, and I'm the Director of Marketing for Center for Responsive Schools. And like Jane, long time ago, I was a fourth grade teacher, so love spending time in elementary schools. And welcome, everyone. Thanks for being with us tonight. I normally live in Massachusetts, and right now I'm visiting my parents in Florida, where it's still a little chilly, not gonna lie, still a little chilly in Florida, but loving it because I don't have to look at any snow. Thanks.
And hello, everyone. My name is Tina Miller. I'm our Chief of Educational Partnerships here at Center for Responsive Schools. Prior to this, I was a second grade teacher and an elementary administrator coming to you from Balmy, Wisconsin. Well, where it is about 29 degrees, so that's not bad as well. One thing I wanted to share was, that joy that you find with elementary students. I was going to say jokes, joy, and hugs. And Leah McGinnis in this group in the chat totally agree with you, right? It's those random facts that just are hilarious with elementary students. So I'm glad to be here with you all tonight.
Thank you, Tina. So during our time this evening, we're going to just take a glimpse into the redesigned responsive classroom elementary course, well, for elementary educators. And some of you joined us last week. So if you did, welcome back. And those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. You're going to get the opportunity to get a little bit of information about the course for elementary educators. The hope for this webinar is that it's just going to give you some insight onto how this course could help address things that might be challenging in your space or things that you just want to strengthen. Like you're like, this is going really well, and I want to continue to see this grow in my space. And so how might I do that? And we're going to talk about the things that this course provides to be able to help you do that in your classroom space or in your school community. So before we start, I'm going to give you kind of a poll. And well, it's not kind of a poll, it a little bit is. And so I'm going to give you a question. And the question is about which of the following, and I'll show you in just a minute, presents the greatest challenge in your setting this year. And so if you see the choices and you're like, whoa, maybe this one and this one, I want you to think of it this way. If this is a challenge for you in your classroom space or your school community, which one would you say, I want to address this one first? This is the one that I feel like this is the place where I want to spend my time. Or if it's not necessarily a challenge for you, you can say this is a place where I want to continue to strengthen. So I'm going to show you the question, and then I'm going to give you those responses, and then you're going to use the chat to share which of these is one of the places that presents the greatest challenge for you in your setting this year. So here's the question, and then there's the responses. So A, B, C, or D. So take a moment, think about your school, your setting, your classroom, and then use the chat to share either A, B, C, or D. I'll give you a moment to do that. Thank you for being brave and sharing exactly what might be challenging for you in your space this year. So hopefully what I share with you today is going to help support you in thinking about how might this course support me in my role, or what might be an area that I can strengthen so I can see things grow positively in my space. So if you look, you're not alone. There's a lot of people who are experiencing some of the same things that you're also experiencing. And if you didn't already scroll through the responses in the chat box, take a moment to do that, to know that, oh, there are other elementary educators who are feeling the same things that I'm feeling and are experiencing some of the challenges that I'm experiencing. This course that I'm going to share with you today has been redesigned to better support pre-kindergarten through fifth grade elementary educators in using the responsive classroom approach to navigate some of these common challenges, but then also to strengthen areas where you're seeing students thrive and be successful and just grow. And so I'm going to take a moment to share some of that with you. I also want to acknowledge that for some of you, the responsive classroom approach is very familiar and you have used it before and you're continuing to use the approach and find ways to support your students or your school. And then some of you also might be very familiar with the curriculum, the Fly 5 curriculum, and it might be something that you're already using or you've heard about it and you're wondering a little bit more about it. And for others of you, this might all be new. And my hope is that you're going to find out more about each of those within the course, but then also maybe some questions about some things that you're wondering that'll help you better determine how do I use this course to support my students and support some of those challenging areas. So we're going to take some time this right now to learn a little bit about it and how we can navigate these areas and maybe even some of the others. So you might hear me say something today where you're like, oh, but actually I said other, and I feel like this would really support my students, even though it also fits here too. So we're going to take a look at these three, and I also speak a little bit into the other as well. So one of the places that I saw that people felt like this is a challenge was student behaviors and noticing like an increase in different behaviors that students are demonstrating in the classroom. And so though there are many things in the course that will help support and helping students navigate behavior challenges, I'm going to touch on just these four areas. So we're going to look at these four and how they can, but you also might hear me say something where you say to yourself, I actually think this would also help here. And you're probably right too. It'll probably help in that area as well. And so let's look at these four, starting with clear expectations. So in the course, you as elementary educators would learn the importance of establishing a foundation. The foundation would be that key piece that helps support your students in being able to be consistent with routines and clear expectations. I mean, the idea is we can't expect students to do things that we didn't tell them were expectations, and helping students navigate that, but also helping you as the educator figure out how do I convey my expectations to students in a clear way and in a way where they can follow through with them. When students have a very clear, set, positive foundation in their classroom space, it allows them to feel this sense of, okay, this is what's expected, and being able to be more successful following that and reducing some of those behavior challenges that you might be experiencing in your classroom space. Another thing is looking at how they you can proactively and collaboratively create guidelines and rules and the process in doing that so that structures are predictable in your space and so that educators are allowed and able to help students learn what are the expected behaviors and also to help prevent behavior issues before they even start in your classroom space. Which leads me to the language that we use with our students and actually with colleagues or anybody in the classroom or in the school environment. So the course is designed to equip you as the elementary educator with proactive and responsive teacher language. And this helps you to address the behaviors that will emerge in your classroom because there are going to be times where students make mistakes. And so we want to use language that's going to support and helping them learn what the expected behaviors are and what the expectations are, but then also language that reinforces those positive behaviors too. So we said earlier, you might be seeing an area in your classroom space where you're like, this is going really well. And I want to continue to see this thing that's going really well in my classroom continue to thrive and for students to be successful. And so we want to use language that supports those behaviors, but also language that helps redirect behaviors when students need that extra support, when they're getting off track, or just you need them to help them recall like different expectations that are expected in the classroom. Which brings me to logical consequences. I feel like the language that we helps educators learn and use with their students and with their colleagues goes hand in hand with the logical consequences that students and educators will help students navigate in the classroom. So you'll learn the practice of logical consequences and how to use them and teach students to accept responsibility for their actions, but also helping to hold them accountable for their actions too, in a way that helps them grow and learn. So they start to make connections between this is the thing that I was being challenged by or finding challenge with, and this is the way that I can grow from that so that this thing doesn't happen again. And so educators get the opportunity to see how that sits in their classroom space, but then also how to use them with their students in their school community and in their classroom community. I kind of feel like now that I look at relationship building and practices, that should probably be first because it's part of those foundational things that support building that space so that you have fewer behavior challenges in your space. The course really does emphasize relationship building and relationship building practices. So maybe you're familiar with morning meeting, or maybe you're familiar with establishing hopes and dreams or closing circle, but those practices and practices such as those that come up and that educators learn during the course are really designed to help increase that student trust. When you trust the community in the space and the adults in that community, you know that they're going to help you when you make a mistake and get you back in the space for learning. And it also does else like help reduce those power struggles that can emerge in the classroom because there's a lack of trust, or the relationship hasn't been built in a way that allows students to feel that sense of safety in the classroom too. We're going to take a look at B, which I saw come up quite a bit with self-regulation. And well, when students are struggling, I guess, with self-regulation, and how that can be really tricky in the classroom, and how the course can help you help your students with self-regulation. So we'll look at these three, and it doesn't mean these are the only three that are offered in the course, but there's the three that I'm going to highlight for you, and starting with quiet time and mindfulness. For some of you, both of these practices may be very familiar. And so you may be thinking about, this is something I've been doing and I just want to continue to do, or I haven't actually explored this yet. But the course introduces both of these practices, quiet time and mindfulness, and it's to help students develop an awareness of themselves, their attention. I saw someone say like attention and focus, and also being aware of their bodies and their emotions at the same time. Both of the practices are practices that as educators you will experience in the course. So when you're experiencing it, it gives you an opportunity to then transfer it. If this is what it feels like, and it's like for me, how to then transfer it to my students, but learning the process of how to do that too, also while you're experiencing it. Role play and interactive modeling. I have to say, role play is probably a practice that many educators are very familiar with. And it's one of those practices where you can use it then to help students learn behaviors and skills that allow them to build a repertoire of ways to respond in different situations. And so it provides students with like a structured, safe way to be aware of what they're doing, but opportunities to practice those and manage their emotions, and even things like transitions, because transitions can be tricky and transitions can be hard, but then also interactions. And so interactive modeling and role play are intended to help support educators in helping their students use both of those practices to help in regulating themselves. The other key piece of that is within the course, you're learning about where your students are developmentally. So you get a chance from your youngest learner all the way to your older learners, figuring out this is what's going to be most beneficial for my students who are older, younger, or anywhere in between to help them build those self-regulation skills. And even more so, explicit teaching of those self-regulation skills as well. So by the final day of the course, educators will take all the practices you learned in the course days that came before that, and then you'll learn those strategies that you've gained, and then you'll learn how to couple them alongside the explicit teaching of those skills. So students will learn those, and you'll have the skills you need to teach them so students can be successful in regulating themselves. So in the course, you're introduced actually to the Fly 5 curriculum for social and behavioral well-being, and given the opportunity to explore the learning management system, so the LMS, and also all the lessons that are provided to explicitly teach the skills that students need to be successful. So you'll learn how to bring those together along with the practices that you've learned throughout the course to figure out, how do I think about my students and meet their needs in the best way so that they can be successful. And in addition to that, just taking the course, you get a year license to the Fly 5 curriculum so that you can continue to explore and figure out what's going to be best to continue to support your students throughout the year. We're going to take a look at this one about student motivation and engagement, or when that's not where you want it to be in your classroom space. You want to see it grow and for students to be excited. And some of the things that people said that was rewarding about working with elementary students is just when they're excited about things and they have that moment where they get things. That's such a great feeling as an educator when you're like, everyone's getting it and it feels good, and it feels good for them too. And so you'll spend some time in the course just looking at what those characteristics are that make instruction engaging for students. So, how to make instruction active for students and interactive for students. And when it is, it helps to decrease off task behaviors, but also increase participation as well. So, students are more likely to attend to what's happening when they're engaged in that thing that's happening. Also, we know when students have voice in their learning, they're more likely to be invested in it. So, thinking about how educators can then foster student voice and ownership over student learning, and that increases their intrinsic motivation and also their investment in the learning that's happening. So, whether they're learning in one space and they move to another space, whether they're young learners or older learners or anything in between, making sure to build that intrinsic motivation in students and just how to do that, including how you structure the lessons and how you use structures and choice in your lessons. So you'll learn about structures and practices such as academic choice, and that's taught during the course. And it's also experienced during the course. So you, as an adult learner, also experience it and get the opportunity to think specifically about your students and what they need and what your environment looks like to allow for students to make choices throughout the learning. Because think about it, when students come to school, most of their day is already decided for them. They don't get to say, I would like to have math first, and then I would like to follow that by lunch. They don't get to pick those things. And so wherever we have opportunities to offer choice for students allows for stronger engagement. And so we'll see more motivation and more engagement when we're allowed or allowing for students to do those things. And it makes learning more meaningful and relevant for students as well. Within the course, you also get two additional resources. So you will get the newest, like what is it, the fifth edition of Yardsticks, as well as the third edition of the first 6 weeks of school. And they are used within the course, and you get to take them with you and continue to use them to support the learning that's happening in your classroom and in your school community. So maybe some of the things that I shared with you really resonated with you, and you have a clear picture of how this course can support you and any areas that you want to strengthen or places where you're like, this is a little bit challenging. And I want to figure out how I can support my students or my school community in strengthening these areas where they're not quite where I want them to be yet. And or maybe you have maybe some questions and you're wondering, okay, so now I've heard all of this information. So what happens next? And this is where Tina and her colleagues come in and being able to support you with, so I have this information, where do I go from here? So I'm going to let Tina share with you exactly how you can support your next steps in this journey.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane. So I want you to think of the power of that collaborative partner, that thought partner. So I work with a team of educational partnership consultants, and that's what we do is we listen, we hear you, and what we try to do is match up courses just like the one Jane was just describing here, our core course for elementary, and let's see what options we have. So we'd love to be a thought partner with you. We have some options though, and I want you to think about as an elementary leader, I see some administrators in this group too, how you might bring us on site. Or as educators, if you're like, yep, my professional development budget is limited, we also offer something called advertised events, which means that we're select locations all across the nation on select dates, and you can join us, kind of like going to a conference. It's RC for everyone. And you join us there, but there's also virtual events too, that if you're thinking, yep, I need to have this sort of format. So those actually start in March. So you could join us starting as early as March. And then all throughout the summer, we have a variety of locations for our advertised events. And think of those as like conferences where you get to come and participate in these courses as well, virtual and in person. Now, here's the best part though. And Jane, I was so excited when you brought up Fly 5. I was going to share that and I was going to do a little drum roll. You guys, as you take this as a contract, which means we come to you. All right, we come to your school, you're in a group up to 30 people of your colleagues, and we're at your days, your location. Those participants that are a part of a contract get that license or that seat with the Fly 5 curriculum. So, what I heard Jane say was, all right, relationship building, how important that is. And that can be educator to student, student to student. So, with the Fly 5 curriculum, what I love about it is we really teach how do you teach second graders? And I was a second grade teacher how to invite others to play, how to welcome someone new into the group, or fifth, even eighth graders, how to really analyze how is the characteristics of a healthy friendship. how to accept criticism from peers. So our Fly 5 license for that year comes along with the contract. And what I think is fantastic about it is we've done the heavy lifting. We're grounded in developmental practices to help get all of those ages and stages and their needs met and that teaching. So I saw in the chat someone had said, I'm all ears for quiet time and mindfulness. We have something called mindful moments and mini mindful moments as well. And it's just a little podcast. You press play and it's teaching children they can listen and they're gaining skills. So little things like that makes our lives a little bit easier and it's teaching children those skills for mindfulness and self-regulation. So we love this stuff. We're so excited about the new version and new redesign. So talk to us, join us. You can copy this QR code. Kristen will also send it to you. Let's be a thought partner together. And on the next slide, I just have some comments from what other people have said about the team that I work with. And we're really proud of that, is that we listen, we take the time to just be a partner with you. So I'll just stop and let you just take a quick peek at those comments because we love interacting with educators. All right. As you can tell, we love talking about this stuff. So use that QR code or go on our websites and it just says sign up to bring us to your school. And you can select your dates, whatever works for you to have that conversation.
Thank you, Tina. And Tina mentioned these dates. And so, and if I say anything that is inaccurate, Tina or Kristen, feel free to chime in. But if you already know, you're like, I know I want to take this already and I want to take it sooner rather than later, you're in luck. So in March, we will start our very first opportunity for you to take this virtually. And I want to say it's in multiple time zones. Is that correct? Okay. All right. And it's over 3 different days. So you do day 1 on the 13th, day 2 on the 20th, and day 3 on the 27th. And you get the opportunity to learn about all the things that we just shared with you, but then also how you can apply it right away. And Kristen put that link in the chat box in case you want it right away and you have it. And I want to say Kristen will probably send it to you afterwards as well. So you have all of that information too. So if you're like, I already know and I would like to do this thing, then you can absolutely register. And she put the link there so that you'll be able to do that. The other thing, and I want to say I don't have it here, but Tina mentioned it and I heard her share that if you're already ready and you're looking for locations or times this summer, they're already up on our website. And so if you're knowing that this is something that you would like to do sooner rather than later, please feel free to register. And I feel like Kristen's going to drop that in the chat as well, just because she's always on top of that. And so if you know that there's a summer location or a virtual summer location, that makes sense, something like that, that you can then also register for that as well. And like Tina shared, if you know that your school or your school district, just, we want to bring it to our school or school district. Her team is amazing at helping support you in making that happen. So you have the opportunity now. So you already put it in the chat. So you're able to do that as well. So today we got to get a glimpse into the elementary course. And next week, if you know any secondary educators who teach either middle school or high school, and they would like to know about our secondary course, then please invite them to come to our next week's webinar where we focus specifically on what the secondary course will offer. And so you can share it with other people and say, I didn't know that secondary was a thing. And now they can know exactly what the course can offer. And so please invite them next week. And then for many of you who are thinking about discipline and how to support those behaviors, our final 2 webinars speak specifically to discipline. So our discipline course, our responsive classroom discipline course, and our teaching children to care course for multi-tiered support. So either one of those, if you're like, whoa, that might be me, feel free to attend 1, 2, or all 3 of them as they come up, or share with other people so that they can also attend too. But thank you so much for joining us this evening to find out more about the responsive classroom course for elementary educators. We're so glad that you were able to do that, and hopefully we'll see you again. Have a good night, everyone.